Good afternoon, Sir Garredo. I am Irami Emanundan, and I'll be sharing to you my insights on Introduction to Linguistics. So, when I first came across linguistics way back in my college years, I thought it was all about studying languages only. But the more I learned, the more I discovered it is so much more. Because when you say linguistics, it is a scientific study of language, exploring how it is works, evolves, and is used by humans. So it covers various subfields, and each of it offers unique insights into the language. Okay, so one of the biggest surprises for me was realizing that language isn't arbitrary. So, when you say is it arbitrary? It has patterns and rules. So, the idea that language isn't arbitrary because it has patterns and rules is the basis on the structured nature of human communication. While some aspects of language may be arbitrary, such as the specific sounds assigned to words, the overall system is governed by principles that provide order and predictability. So, learning phonetics also and phonology are those things that made me realize about linguistics. So, when you say phonetics, it's studies of physical production, acoustic properties, and perception of speech sounds. So it is about how sounds are made, transmitted, and heard. On the other hand, when you see phonology, it examines how sounds function within a particular language, including the patterns and rules that govern their organization. So the two parts or structures of linguistics taught me that linguistics is constructed that on a deeper level, they have fundamental structures as well. The concept of universal grammar intrigued me. How children everywhere, regardless of where they are born, seem to learn language so easily. But at the same time, each language develops in its own way, based on culture, history, and society. Perhaps the most fascinating thing I discovered was how language is related to cognition. So aside from that, for instance, research into bilingualism reveals how being able to speak or how a person being able to speak more than one language can actually influence the manner in which we think and process information. I also found intriguing I also got intrigued the way brain damage impacts language in certain manners, as with such condition as aphasia. So here, I also studied or learned about the structures of linguistics. So when you say structures of linguistics, we have here, linguists break language down into components. The first component is phonetics and also phonology. So the two of them are both being combined, and it means sounds and their patterns. So other structure of linguistic is morphology. So when it comes to morphology, it is focusing on the word formation. Next is the syntax. Syntax, as we all know, the sentence structure. And next is semantics and also pragmatics. So when you say semantics and pragmatics, they come along. So it means the meaning and the context. And also, when the speaker also referred to talking about in the video I've watched, the speaker there mentioned about duende. So when you say duende, it means a supernatural being or spirit like elves or goblins. So it shows how much the Filipino language was influenced by the Spanish colonization because words pertaining to religion and mythology were borrowed and integrated into it. It gave me a good understanding of how language is wired deeply into one's brain. I never really considered how language shows power, identity, and culture until I began studying linguistics. I also began paying attention to the way people adapt their speech based on where they are socially, and I saw that language is not just about communication, but also about how we define ourselves and how we connect with others. So I've also discovered the key insights of linguistics. So the first one, as what I've mentioned in the previous slide, language has structures. So those mentioned are the structures. Next is the language is universal yet diverse. So every human society has a language, but structures and sounds vary widely. Not also Universal Grammar by Noam Chomsky. It suggests deep similarities across languages. Also, the third one, language changes over time. So when you say language changes over time, it's not static. It is a dynamic language. So words and grammar evolve. Example given, Old English versus Modern English. So if we're going to differentiate the both or the two of them, we can really conclude that there will be something or a dynamic way of changing. So, because as time passes or as time goes by, it's not always the usual English that we're gonna talk about. It is evolving because the more our the years evolve, the more changes it occurs. Next, it influences include technology, or the influences includes technology, migration, and cultural shifts. The fourth one is language and thought are intertwined. So we have here also however, thought can exist independently of language. Next, language are acquired naturally. So, as what I've learned from my college days, that there are also people, or there is a nature of human that we can acquire language naturally. So, children acquire language effortlessly, following patterns of development. Second, language acquisition is different and often influenced by the first language. Okay, so in here, as a teacher, my job is to lead students in uncovering the underlying structures, patterns, and intricacies of language, things they've never seen before. Perhaps the most satisfying experience in teaching linguistics is when students understand that language is more than words and sounds, but a systematic system with inherent rules. Most students are amazed to hear the phonetics, morphology, syntax, and semantics coexist as pieces of puzzle to form meaning. I enjoy seeing them transition from perceiving language as natural to comprehending it as systematic and developing system. Because my students already have at least one language down, they tend to think they know language already. But when we analyze it scientifically, they view it in a whole new way. So the sixth one is language reflects and shapes society. So we all know dialects and socialects indicate identity, region, and social status. Linguistic variation can be linked to power, inclusion, and exclusion. Next, the last one, animal communication versus human language. So we all know that it's not only us human has language, but also animals. Animals communicate, but human language is unique due to its complexity, grammar, and ability to express abstract ideas. So if we're going to differentiate animal communication versus human languages, so we are we have the advantage because our grammar has complexity and it is understood by each one of us. Okay, so aside from that, I've also discovered that the principles such as universal grammar, language acquisition, and linguistic relativity challenge their preconceptions and lead to rich discussions. So it's always great when they relate these theories to their own lives, whether it's learning a new language. One of the biggest objectives in my teaching as a private school teacher is to demonstrate to students that linguistics is not merely an academic discipline, but instead it is closely related to their everyday lives. I invite them to examine conversation. Sometimes in my class, I'm inviting my students to do conversation or listening to slang words and think how or about how language expresses identity and social groups. When they begin to pay attention to code switching, dialect variation, or how language changes with technologies and media, I know they're really paying attention to the topic. So in here, language and cognition. So language and cognition, how language shapes thought, language and cognition are deeply connected, influencing how we perceive, process, and interact with the world. Researchers debate the extent to which language shapes thought, but it's clear that they interact in powerful ways. Okay, so aside from that, I also discovered the lessons I pondered. Uh, okay, so for instance, research into bilingualism reveals how being able to speak more than one language can actually influence the manner in which we think and process information. I also found intriguing the way brain damage impacts language in certain manners. Here, I've also learned about linguistics plays a crucial role in education, benefiting both students and teachers by enhancing language awareness, communication skills, and critical thinking. So, perhaps the most rewarding part of teaching linguistics is watching our students to develop an appreciation of language that they never had before. Most of them started to course believing it's about studying several languages. But during graduation or they were able to learn the language, they leave with a richer appreciation of how language functions, why it evolves, and how it shaped the world around them. I particularly love hearing from students who shared that they are now listening to speech differently, breaking down their own speech, or even think about linguistics as a career. Through the study of linguistics, we are more sensitive to the way we use language in various situations. This sensitivity enhances our communication skills, whether written, spoken, or multilingual environments. Knowledge of pragmatics, the analysis of language and context, enables us to deal with social interactions more effectively. Aside from that, I also learned here, three, a greater awareness of language diversity. So exposure to different dialects, languages, and the linguistic structures fosters cultural appreciation and global understanding. So if we're going to expose ourselves in a diversity or in an environment where there are diverse students, so we are able to, or the students can acquire the language of the student A to the student B. Also, it reduces biases against non-standard language varieties and promotes inclusivity. Fourth, enhance multilingualism and language learning. So with the use of linguistic knowledge makes learning new languages easier by recognizing patterns and structures shared between languages. It also encourages metalinguistic awareness, thinking about how language works. And lastly, number five, it helps students understanding language in society. It helps students see how language influences power, identity, and social interaction. It strengthens communication skills by making students aware of language used in different contexts. It could be formal versus informal or persuasive speech and etc. Linguistics give us insights into how language are acquired, and hence it is a valuable resource for language learners and teachers. So what is the impact, or what are the impact of linguistics on teachers? In students, that's for students. The one I've mentioned are the impact for students. Again, to recall, the impact of linguistics to the students, it can have greater awareness of language diversity. It can enhance multilingualism and language learning, and understand language in society. Let's go over the impact of linguistics to the teachers. So first one, for the teachers, more effective language teaching. So linguistic knowledge helps teachers explain grammar, pronunciation, and meaning with greater clarity. It also allows for evidence-based language teaching methods, improving student outcomes. Secondly, in addressing language learning challenges. So teachers can better support students who are struggling with language acquisition. Example giving those students who have dyslexia or those who have struggling in the second language learning. Also, it helps in differentiating between errors due to learning difficulties versus natural language development. Third, it gives encouraging inclusive classrooms. With the use of linguistics, it can give awareness of linguistic diversity that helps teachers respect and validate students' home language and dialects. So also, it reduces language-based discrimination and promotes equitable education for multilingual learners. Fourth, in enhancing communication with students. So understanding pragmatics and social linguistics help teachers adjust their our language for better student engagement and understanding. Also, it encourages the use of effective questioning, feedback, and classroom interaction strategies. Lastly, it promotes lifelong learning and research. So teachers trained in linguistics are more open to adapting new teaching strategies and exploring language-based research. It also encouraged ongoing professional development in literacy, language acquisition, and bilingual education. So with the use of linguistic, we are now able to really acquire other languages aside from our first language. And here, language forms the very cornerstone of human experience, and understanding linguistics allows us to truly value its simplicity, authority, and role in shaping the world. So in here, teaching linguistics provide both students and teachers with tools to understand language more deeply. It also improves communication and foster inclusive and analytical learning environment. It's not only enhancing our literacy but also cultivates cultural awareness and critical thinking, making it a valuable field in education. So whether utilized to aid in communication, linguistics serve to preserve tongues or examine human mind and space. So linguistics provide a method by which to move within the world with an understanding of a world but that built its center of language. In teaching also introduction to linguistics, I have reaffirmed my conviction that language is among the strongest resources we possess as human beings. It it conditions our mind, friendships, and communities in ways that we tend to take for granted. As a teacher, my biggest pleasure is watching students grow curious and analytically inclined towards something as basic as language. It's not merely theories and terminologies, it's comprehending the very core of human communication. Language is fundamental to human existence, and learning linguistics allows us to appreciate its complexity, power, and terminologies. So, language is fundamental to human existence, and learning linguistics allows us to appreciate its complexity, power, and influence. Whether we use it to enhance communication, preserve language, or understand human cognition, gives us the tools to navigate a world where language is as the heart of everything we do. So why is it important to learn linguistics? So linguistics give us insights into how languages are acquired, and hence it is a valuable resource for language learners and teachers. So linguistics is a vital in the education. When you say vital is important, so because it enriches or enhances our communication skills and cultural preservation. So it helps us understand how language shapes human interaction and the world. Learning linguistics is more than just studying language. It is a gateway to understanding human cognition, communication, and cultural diversity. By exploring the intricacies of phonetics, syntax, semantics, social linguistics, those structures of linguistics, learners gain a deeper appreciation of how languages shape thought, identity, and social interaction. So before we will end our am I sharing? So also by studying linguistics, individuals not only improve their own language abilities, but also it develops greater awareness of the dynamic and evolving nature of human communication. In an increasingly globalized world, linguistic knowledge empowers people to bridge cultural gaps. Ultimately, learning linguistics is a lifelong skill that deepens our understanding of the world, enriches our interactions, and strengthens our ability to engage with language in meaningful and impactful way. Before I end this sharing of insight, I would like to leave a quotation that says, linguistics is the key to unlocking the mysteries of human thought and communication. So this saying means that by studying linguistics, we can gain deeper insight into the fundamental processes of human cognition and interaction. It enables us to analyze not just what we say, but how and why we say it. Thank you for listening, and that would be all for my insights.